No, really, this has to do with a group called the Tyler Charitable Foundation, which was they do with their money in a charitable way. It's just a little window, but take a look at this. This is how much they have donated to the Tyler Foundation over the past few years. In 2007, more than $2 million worth, $2,500,000 or so. 2008, a little more than $1 million. You can see there. 2009. $49,000. The money tends to come from these blind trusts from either Mitt Romney or his wife, and this would suggest a declining number here over these past few years, but that's just these 3 years. If you look over all the years, it kind of goes up and down and changes with the year, so there's no reason to believe that next year they might not give much more, but that's where it is coming from, and the distributions also seem to fluctuate each year, how much this charity gives to other people. 2007, you see about $500,000 given there. Look at that. In 2009, almost $2 million went out, and then last year, about $600,000. The fund right now, John, is believed to be worth about $10 million, and that gives charity to various groups out there.
And you say various groups. Can we say specifically who's getting this money?
Yeah, there's some of them are to the LDS Church. The more is used for charitable purposes by the church. LD, massive outreach all over the world. But a lot of it goes to other things you might expect, like cystic fibrosis, cancer, multiple sclerosis, research for those diseases, that sort of thing. The United Way, very standard things that a lot of people might expect, John.
And as we await the governor's personal returns tomorrow, you go through the foundation. Any controversial groups on that list, Tom?
Yeah, some would be controversial depending on how you look. The Massachusetts Family Innovative and Libertarian Large, the Congressional Sportsman Foundation. This is a group that promotes hunting and fishing rights, so some people might not like that. My Sister's Keeper is a group that reaches out to help women in poor communities all over the world. Right now they have a focus on the Sudan, on Africa, and the Beckett Fund is also involved in religion in that it is a group of lawyers, basically, that aggressively tries to fight what they see as bias against religion. For example, they're involved in the pushback against the idea that religious groups can be forced to include birth control as part of their health care plan for workers there. So depending on your political point of view, if you're a liberal, there's plenty in this group that will tell you he's the conservative I don't want. And if you're a conservative and you look closely enough, you'll even find some things in there that might make you say he's the moderate that I don't want. But again, it's just a look at their giving, John. This is not all of the charitable giving by the Romneys. It's just how they've addressed this one group that they started.
Foreman, thanks so much. Let's get back to our conversation with Republican pollster at Goeas, CNN contributor, Democratic strategist Paul Begala, and Madden, who's a senior advisor to Governor Romney. That's from a family foundation. You see those contributions there. I suspect that last slide, Governor Romney's having trouble with very conservative voters. I suspect he should take that maybe and mail it around. Those groups are. Let's get back to the bigger issue tomorrow, the tax returns. He started to fall in South Carolina. Is it the transparency question that causes people to move? You know, and I do. I've talked to people who say, you know, the person, and he doesn't like talking about his wealth.
Well, I think, first of all, I think that the campaign was always prepared to have a certain level of disclosure.
If it was always prepared, forgive me for interrupting. At first he said, I'm probably not going to release them, then he said I might, then he said this, then he said that. He's been at this a while. Don't you need to be consistent?
The precedents related to campaign bring when you become a nominee. I would say that, in hindsight, we would have liked to have been better prepared, and we would have liked to have these ready now, but he's not the nominee yet. But now, understanding this, and look, I think the big problem was that down in South Carolina, we spent 2 days talking about tax returns, and we didn't spend 2 days talking about the economy. So I think we'll admit that, and this is why this is really important to put this in the rearview mirror, and again, talk about the most important reason. The governor didn't decide to run for president because he wants to run on, the financial disclosure laws in the country. He wants to run for president, and he's running for president because he wants to turn around this economy. He thinks America's better days are still ahead. And that is what we have to get back to this campaign back.
But the reason he couldn't get back to her, he lost a week or several days on it, Ed, is because his Republican opponents picked up on this. The Obama campaign, the Democratic National Committee, for weeks and weeks was saying, release him, Governor. That's easy for a Republican to say, go away. No Republican voter is going to get mad at you for pushing back at Obama. But it's when Governor Perry and Speaker Gingrich and Senator Santorum started pressing him. Why did it matter to Republican voters?
Well, it's more what Newt is presenting out there. I mean, right now he has the advantage of running as a populist. He's anti-big government, he's anti-big labor, he's anti-big business, and he's anti-big media.
Hadn't noticed.
And he's combining all of those, not just as a conservative, but as a populist. I think getting out of the tax issue and really getting it out on the table, it wasn't that the tax issue wasn't as important as it was painting Romney as a big business person.
So as a Democrat, do you worry if he's the ultimate nominee that he's getting this out now and that the Democrats lose what they thought was some kind of a weapon?
Oh, he needs to disclose the way his father did, at least a dozen years. That's what President Bush, Bill Clinton, when he was governor of Arkansas, released at least a dozen years of his tax returns. That's the standards. The standard his own father set. And I'm wondering, look, we know he's generous to his church. He's a man of profound faith, and I admire that. But we know he's already admitted that he pays less than 15% rate, which is fighters out there, even though he's a mega millionaire. That's a real problem. I wonder if in those past years, maybe there were years where he paid zero. A lot of rich people, a lot of fat cats like Romney find ways around all taxes altogether.
Well, they're going to release these documents.
For at least a dozen
these
years.
documents in the morning. I assume you've been part of the conversations about the communication strategy tomorrow morning, I assume. What's been the hardest thing in dealing with the papers, and what do you think the biggest question is going to be tomorrow?
Well, you know, I do think that these things are voluminous, and I think the most important thing that you can do is do it right the first time. That way you don't have to do it 3 or 4 times. So that's been the focus of the campaign. It's like making sure that the details there are right, that this is done once, and then we can move on in the debate. And I just, back to Paul's point, I don't think then-candidate Obama met that standard that you're now applying to Governor Romney.
Oh, well, he should have. He's certainly not a fat cat. He
released a couple or a few years. He was trying to use it as a lever against Senator Clinton.
Right.
He did it early on.
Sure.
So let's move on. This is a transparency debate that has come into the Republican primaries. You guys want to talk about who's better on the economy. Speaker Gingrich wants to say, you know, I balanced the budget with Bill Clinton, and we've talked about taxes in Governor Romney's case, transparency about this Freddie Mac contract we could get any minute from Speaker Gingrich. And to you again, where Governor Romney's up with a tough ad right now in Florida, hard hit by foreclosure, saying while you were struggling, while your home was going into the tank, Newt Gingrich is taking $1.7 million Freddie Mac. What is the test tonight when this contract comes out?
And that is going to play a lot. On the contract, it really could get into the full campaign with Newt. I mean, now, if you listen to Newt, everything good that has happened in Washington in the last 30 years, he's been a major part of. Everything bad that has happened in Washington in the last 30 years, he's had absolutely nothing to do with. That's where the Freddie and Fannie issue really kind of comes in. It busts apart his campaign of, I've been part of it and not part of it.
As a communicator, Paul, I know you're not a fan of Speaker Gingrich, but he has managed, to Ed's point so far, to get people to say, here's the good part of me. I'm a good messenger. I'm a good debater. I've you put up. As you go through that, why are Republican voters not, at least so far, listening to, oh, yeah, that's right. He maybe overplayed his hand in impeachment. Oh, that's right. He was censured. He did have to leave.
Well, in South Carolina, there wasn't enough time. He peaked right at the end. It was clearly a strategy, right? First, he bashed Juan Williams of the Fox News Channel. Then he bashed you of CNN. This is clearly, we'll see what he does tonight. There's a debate on MSNBC. Then Thursday, there's another. In almost every debate, he's found some reason to bash the media. That plays great with the Republican base. The problem is, it really works with Republican primary voters. We saw that. It doesn't work with swing voters. Swing voters don't sit around saying, gee, my life is great, but I wish someone would attack John King. Like, my mother's a swing voter. She loves you, John. So
God bless
her. Just, but seriously, it fades out when you move to a broader electorate. And in fact, it looks a little angry. We do not want an angry president.
It's a somewhat broader electorate, still a Republican electorate, but it's a somewhat broader electorate in the state of Florida. What lessons did Team Romney learn in South Carolina about making the case against Gingrich that we will see in the next 7 days in Florida?
Well, I think, first of all, we have to have our own moment with the persuadable voters out there related to the economy and related to electability. I think the voters in South Carolina had a very distorted view of what electability looks like related to Speaker Gingrich, and that's because Speaker Gingrich represents the status quo in Washington and everything that has gone wrong in Washington. And that is why that if we were to put him forth as our nominee, we won't have as ability to run and drive a strong contrast against President Obama in a general election as we would with Governor Romney outside of Washington.
I do think we'll see a little more fight in the debates because they have someone to fight President Obama. Some of them win, lose, or whatever. Kevin Madden, Paul Goeas, thanks for coming in. I'd like to welcome them with a little bit of